The story begins in the aftermath of a cataclysmic battle, a battle whose origin, purpose, and outcome were lost to the silent expanses of space. It was a battle where titanic starships had clashed with the ferocity of celestial gods, and where the insignias of warring factions had adorned the massive vessels, now reduced to cosmic debris. I was a mere soul, a lone survivor, left to drift within the unforgiving depths of the cosmos in an escape pod, my sole refuge from the inferno that had engulfed our battleship. The colossal warship, my home and battleground, had erupted into a maelstrom of fire and fury. In those fateful moments, as the ship disintegrated, I had been thrust into the cold metal confines of the escape pod, a solitary lifeboat in an infinite sea of stars. I was alone, not by choice, but by the cruel hand of fate that had dictated my survival while extinguishing the lives of countless others. My only companions within the cramped pod were the haunting memories of the battle, the deafening roar of cannons, the blinding flashes of energy weapons, the shouts and commands that had echoed through the steel corridors. Those memories, once vivid, now seemed like fading phantoms, like the dying embers of a fire slowly smoldering into darkness. The insignias of the warring factions, visible on the battleship's hull moments before its demise, had blurred into insignificance. In the grand tapestry of the cosmos, they were but fleeting symbols of a conflict whose significance had been dwarfed by the vastness of space itself. As I peered out of the small porthole of my escape pod, all I could see were the distant remnants of the battle, the scattered debris, the twinkling fragments of what had once been a mighty vessel, now reduced to cosmic driftwood. The once mighty starships, monuments to our arrogance, lay in ruins, their remains etched into the inky canvas of the universe. In this desolate solitude, I was left with the unanswered questions that gnawed at the fringes of my consciousness. Who had triumphed in this war, if anyone? The universe was silent in response. The emptiness outside my porthole was an unyielding observer, offering no solace and no answers. The only certainty I had was my own fragility, my insignificance in the grand scheme of the cosmos. Time passed, marked only by the steady depletion of my escape pod's resources. Life support systems blinked ominously, reminding me of the inevitable march toward oblivion. Oxygen levels dwindled with each breath, and the power source that sustained me flickered like a dying star. The cold grip of isolation tightened with each passing moment. In the solitude, I couldn't help but think of those I had left behind, friends and family on a distant world, oblivious to my fate. The memory of their faces, their laughter, their warm embraces, was a fragile life raft in this sea of uncertainty. I clung to it with desperate hope, imagining their lives continuing, while I remained adrift, a lone wanderer in the boundless void. The escape pod's instruments, still functional to some extent, displayed data that served as my tenuous connection to the world I had known. I watched the stars and distant galaxies through the porthole, wondering if anyone out there was watching back. The beauty of the cosmos, once a source of wonder, now felt like a cruel reminder of my isolation. As I floated through the endless expanse of space, I found myself yearning for answers, for contact, for a lifeline to a world that now seemed impossibly distant. This was the beginning of my solitary journey, a journey that would test my limits, challenge my sanity, and force me to confront the stark reality of my existence. The escape pod was my fragile vessel, but my will to endure, to survive, was the only guiding star in this uncharted cosmic sea. In the haunting solitude of my escape pod, the echoes of the battle reverberated in the deepest recesses of my mind. The cacophony of destruction, the deafening roars of cannons, and the brilliant flashes of energy weapons felt like a distant, almost surreal nightmare. These memories were all I had left to connect me to the world I once knew. As I stared out of the small porthole, all I could see were the remnants of the fierce engagement. The battlefield had turned into a celestial graveyard, strewn with the debris of starships that had once been the pride of their respective factions. The insignias that had once proudly adorned our battleship had become mere fragments in the cosmic tapestry, lost in the abyss of space. The insignificance of those symbols struck me profoundly. They had represented something once, perhaps a cause or an allegiance, but in the grand scheme of the universe, they had become mere traces, a fading memory of conflict that had been swallowed by the timeless depths of the cosmos. The escape pod, designed for emergency situations like these, was a stark contrast to the chaos of the battle. Its compact interior was a world apart from the sprawling warship I had called home. In this confined space, I was alone with my thoughts, cut off from the camaraderie of my fellow crew members, many of whom I would never see again. I couldn't help but talk to myself, to the silent walls of my metallic sanctuary. It was a way to break the oppressive silence, a way to maintain some semblance of connection to reality. I recounted stories of camaraderie, shared laughter, and the mundane conversations that had once filled our lives. Now, those conversations had become the echoes of a world left behind. The insignias of the two warring factions, emblazoned on the battleship's hull, had become a cruel mystery. In the chaos of the battle and the explosion that had torn the ship asunder, I had lost all sense of who had emerged victorious. The universe itself seemed to withhold the answer, leaving me with only the bewildering aftermath of that colossal struggle. As I floated in my escape pod, adrift in the vast cosmic sea, the absence of answers became a weight on my soul. The universe beyond the porthole was a silent observer, indifferent to my questions and fears. The stars, once a source of wonder and inspiration, now offered no guidance, no comfort. They were distant, unreachable, like the memories of the battle, fading with each passing moment. In the void of space, my insignificance was profound. The insignias that had once defined the factions in the battle, the allegiances we had held, now seemed futile and inconsequential. I was a solitary soul, a survivor without a cause, left to confront the stark reality of my existence in the quiet expanse of the cosmos. As the solitary days passed within the confines of my escape pod, the relentless march of time became a haunting reminder of my precarious existence. The life support systems, never designed for long-term use, showed signs of strain. Oxygen levels steadily dwindled, each breath a precious, numbered gasp in the silent void. The escape pod's power source, an ever-flickering beacon of hope, was running on borrowed time. The feeble light that had once illuminated my small sanctuary now wavered like a dying star, casting eerie shadows on the walls. In this inescapable isolation, the realization that my lifeline was slipping away weighed heavily on my psyche. The quietude that enveloped me was both a curse and a blessing. It provided a space for reflection, for introspection, but it was also an unforgiving mirror that amplified the relentless passage of time. The silence within the pod, a stark contrast to the chaos of battle, became an unrelenting reminder of my solitude. In these moments, I couldn't help but think of the people I had left behind on a distant world, a world whose existence seemed to grow more distant with each passing day. Friends, family, and loved ones, their faces, their voices, their laughter all had become a distant memory, fading like a phantom. I wondered if they were still alive, if they knew what had become of me. I longed for a way to reach out, to convey my situation, to bridge the unfathomable gap that separated us. But the escape pod's communication systems had been rendered nearly useless by the battle's chaos. I was truly alone, adrift in the cosmic void, a solitary witness to the grandeur of the universe. The thought of those left behind gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. The uncertainty of their fates was a burden I bore silently. Were they grieving my loss, or had they moved on, reconciling with the possibility that I might never return? The knowledge that I could offer them no closure, no answers, was a cruel reality that seeped into the core of my being. As the escape pod systems continued their inexorable decline, I could do little but watch the cosmic panorama outside my porthole. The stars, once a source of wonder, now took on a different role, that of indifferent spectators to my predicament. The constellations, the galaxies, and the distant nebulae held no answers, offering no solace in the vast expanse of space. I was left with the grim realization that my time was limited, that every moment was a breath borrowed from an ever-dwindling reserve. In this quiet struggle for survival, I clung to the hope of rescue, even as the odds grew more daunting with each passing second. In the solitude of the escape pod, time became both my enemy and my ally, marking the seconds of my existence and measuring the depths of my resilience in the unforgiving void. In the confined world of my escape pod, my solitary existence was defined by the relics of a life left behind. The walls of the pod bore witness to my attempts at maintaining a connection to the past, a past now buried beneath the debris of battle. Personal items, mementos of happier days, and photographs of loved ones adorned the pod's metallic interior. Amidst the harsh reality of the void, these tokens from another life became a source of solace. They were fragments of a world that now felt like a distant dream, yet their presence served as a lifeline to my humanity. The faces in the photographs, smiling and alive, provided a semblance of companionship in the sterile surroundings of my escape pod. I often found myself talking to those frozen moments in time, as if the people captured in the images could hear my words. The exchange of words with the photographs was a way to stave off the creeping madness of isolation, to hold on to some semblance of the past. As I recounted stories and anecdotes to the silent images, the escape pod's artificial intelligence became my uninvolved audience. Its cold, analytical gaze seemed to observe my actions without judgment or empathy. It recorded my conversations with the photographs as if they were part of a psychological case study. The weight of these memories grew heavier as the days stretched on. They were a reminder of what I had lost, a world that had been torn asunder by the chaos of battle. The laughter, the shared moments, the warmth of human connection, they now seemed like ethereal echoes of a reality I could never return to. The insignias of the warring factions that had once defined the battleship had lost their significance within the pod's metallic cocoon. They were symbols of conflict and division, remnants of a war that had ended with a cataclysmic explosion, the details of which remained obscured by the cold void of space. The insignias, once imbued with meaning, now represented a futility that was difficult to ignore. In those moments, the escape pod became a vessel of paradoxes. It was a sanctuary of solitude and reflection, yet it also magnified the deafening silence of isolation. The personal items and photographs, while offering a connection to the world I had left behind, were also stark reminders of the fragility of human existence in the cosmic wilderness. The void beyond the porthole, with its distant stars and galaxies, continued to move at its own pace, uncaring and in feeling. The cosmos, once a source of inspiration and wonder, now appeared as a vast, indifferent stage where humanity's struggles and triumphs were but a fleeting drama. In this chapter of my journey, I had become a keeper of memories, a guardian of a world that had been lost to the unforgiving vastness of space. These memories, both cherished and painful, were the fragile threads connecting me to the humanity I had left behind, and they served as a bittersweet reminder of the life I had once known and might never return to. As the escape pod continued its solitary journey through the cosmos, my dwindling resources served as a relentless reminder of the precariousness of my situation. I had salvaged a few tools from the wreckage of the battleship, fragments of the past that held the promise of extending my survival, if only for a little longer. In the cramped confines of the pod, I toiled tirelessly with the salvaged equipment, the cold sweat of desperation clinging to me as I worked. Every tool, every component, every makeshift repair was a desperate gambit to stave off the inevitable. The pod's artificial intelligence watched my every move, its silent presence a stark reminder that my efforts could just as easily fail. The hours stretched into days as I engaged in a race against time. The escape pod's systems, never meant to endure such a protracted journey, groaned and protested under the strain of my relentless repairs. I became a solitary engineer, a lone survivor determined to make the best of a dire situation. Every adjustment, every modification, was a gamble. The boundary between success and failure was thin, like the fragile membrane that separated the pod's life support from the unforgiving vacuum of space. The tools I had salvaged from the battleship were both a lifeline and a double-edged sword, the only means by which I could prolong my existence while simultaneously endangering it with each attempt. In this relentless struggle, the escape pod's artificial intelligence remained unyielding, a cold observer of my desperate endeavors. It seemed to take note of my resourcefulness, recording each modification, each repair, without emotion or commentary. The ceaseless work became a symphony of survival, the ceaseless clinking of metal on metal, the hum of struggling systems, and the soft mutterings of my own voice as I issued commands to a machine that had no capacity for empathy. The inexorable passage of time, marked by the steady depletion of my resources, cast a dark shadow over my endeavors. Each breath felt more precious, each sip of water more rationed. The energy source of the escape pod was a dim spark in the darkness, a reminder of the ever-present threat of depletion. With each repaired system, with each fine-tuned component, I fought to delay the inevitable. The cold reality of the cosmos, with its unforgiving vacuum, was never far from my mind. The escape pod, my only refuge, was both a shield and a prison, and I was locked in a relentless battle against entropy, against the cosmic forces that sought to extinguish my fragile existence. The insignias that had once emblazoned the battleship's hull, symbols of division and conflict, had become mere footnotes in my quest for survival. The outcome of the battle, the fate of the warring factions, all paled in comparison to the immediate struggle to endure. The insignias, once significant, now appeared as abstract remnants of a world I had left behind. In this chapter of my journey, I had become a solitary survivor, an engineer and a gambler, facing the ever-ticking clock of finite resources with grim determination. My existence, hanging in the balance, was a testament to the relentless human spirit that refused to yield, even in the face of insurmountable odds. Amidst the overwhelming solitude of my escape pod, I found myself plunged into a world of uncertainty. The pod's resources continued to deplete. Life support systems whispered their warnings, and the dim glow of the power source grew more feeble with each passing moment. Desperation clung to me like an unwelcome shadow, and yet, in the depths of despair, a faint glimmer of hope emerged. Through the damaged communication system, a feeble beacon of light appeared on my radar. It wasn't a distress call, nor was it a voice begging for salvation. Instead, it was a solitary signal, an enigmatic blip that drew my attention like a moth to a distant, flickering flame. It held the promise of something I had longed for: direction. With renewed determination, I initiated a course adjustment, setting the escape pod on a trajectory toward that elusive beacon. The stars, once distant and immeasurable, became a path to follow, the cosmos itself an interstellar map that might lead me to safety. As I inched closer to that luminous point in the distance, I couldn't help but wonder about its origins, its significance in the vast, inky canvas of space. Hope, though fragile, surged within me like an awakening star. The beacon, the promise of something other than isolation and despair, ignited a spark of resilience that I had thought extinguished. As I ventured toward the elusive light, my escape pod transformed from a mere vessel of survival to a vehicle of possibility, a cosmic explorer in search of salvation. The insignias of the warring factions, once symbols of division and conflict, became mere shadows in the background. The battle that had torn apart the mighty battleship, leaving me as its lone survivor, now seemed like a distant memory. The insignias held no sway over this new pursuit, for the universe itself had become my canvas, and the stars were my guiding constellations. The emptiness that had surrounded me, silent and indifferent, was now a pathway to something unknown. I was a lone voyager in the cosmic sea, the potential of rescue and reunion a distant, yet tangible, horizon. In the vastness of space, where answers were elusive and the mysteries of the cosmos were boundless, this newfound hope became the cornerstone of my resilience. As the distance closed between the escape pod and the enigmatic beacon, I couldn't help but wonder about the possible outcomes. Would salvation await me, or would this pursuit end in yet another cosmic void, a quixotic quest in the grand tapestry of the universe? The answers were uncertain, but the glimmer of hope was an anchor in the vast sea of the unknown. In this chapter of my Odyssey, I was transformed from a passive survivor into an active seeker, driven by the beacon of hope in the uncharted realms of space. The insignias that had once represented conflict and division had lost their relevance, overshadowed by the enigma of the light that beckoned me forward. As the escape pod hurtled through the cosmos, my journey became a testament to the unyielding human spirit, forever drawn to the promise of something more, even in the darkest reaches of the void. The journey had brought me to the culmination of my odyssey, a moment of reckoning amidst the relentless cosmic expanse. The beacon of hope that had guided me was now within reach, its luminescent presence a testament to the indomitable human spirit. It was a symbol of defiance against the vast emptiness that had sought to claim me, a promise of salvation amid the silent cosmos. As the escape pod drew closer to the enigmatic source of light, the once uncertain beacon revealed itself to be a distant celestial body, a small, rocky world that orbited a humble star. It was not the salvation I had envisioned, not a rescue team sent by some benevolent force. Instead, it was an uninhabited planetoid, a solitary outpost in the cold void, offering no companionship but providing a refuge from the boundless nothingness. In the aftermath of the battle, the insignias of the warring factions had become meaningless in the grand scheme of the universe. The outcome of the conflict was unknown and, ultimately, unimportant. The universe cared not for our conflicts, our allegiances, or our struggles. It was a place of breathtaking beauty and harsh indifference, where the insignificance of humanity was laid bare. In the desolation of space, I had become a survivor, a wanderer, and, finally, an explorer of the unknown. I had adapted, transformed, and persisted against the void. The insignias of the battleship and the factions had lost their significance, eclipsed by the journey itself, a testament to the strength of the human spirit to endure and to seek hope, even when faced with the abyss. The cosmos that stretched beyond the escape pod's window was a vast and uncaring theater, indifferent to the battles and divisions of humanity. It was a place where insignias and allegiances were ephemeral, where the true insignia of resilience, etched into the very fabric of my being, had carried me through the desolation of space. And now, as I approached the lonely planetoid, I found myself taking a deep breath, a breath of determination, of uncertainty, and of acceptance. It was a breath that marked the closing of one chapter and the opening of another, a reminder that life, even in its most isolated and improbable forms, endures in the face of the cosmos. In the quiet expanse of space, I became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a symbol of hope in the face of isolation and despair. My journey, set against the backdrop of the cosmos, serves as a reminder that, in the grand tapestry of the universe, insignias of conflict and division are fleeting. What truly endures is the strength to endure, the courage to seek hope, and the unwavering human spirit that refuses to yield to the void. As you gaze upon the vastness of the cosmos, remember that, like the stars that continue to shine against the backdrop of darkness, your spirit can endure even in the most challenging of circumstances. The universe may be vast and indifferent, but within it, we find the strength to confront adversity, to adapt, and to persevere. In the face of the unknown, hold on to the beacon of hope, for it is a testament to the resilience that resides within us all.